Evening and welcome to the IGA podcast. Tonight's episode is with yourself, Joe Public. The main topic tonight is face masks. As always, feel free to comment with your real public opinion. If you feel really strongly about tonight's subject, message voice and we will invite you to call and chat live on the show. As you all have probably seen the last couple of days, face masks have been all over the news, as it will now be, I believe from Friday, be mandatory in England for everybody to wear face masks when you're inside the shops. Scotland already has this and Wales could soon be to follow. Our question really is, what is your opinion on this? We'd like to know whether you think it's a good idea, should we have done it sooner? And what implications does this have for the general public at large? Now, of course, when we say face masks, we're talking about these little things here. I've got one on the mask here. So really, one of the first questions I would have about it, or I've actually been asked, is would kids have to wear them in schools? I'm not sure what I think about them having to spend a whole day wearing a face mask in schools.
Well, if you're not going to be able to get adults to do it, I don't think children will be doing it.
It's a very strange one. You're going to really turn these kids into robots if they've got to sit there. Can you imagine when you were sat in school trying to put your hand up and then shout your answer across the class? You can't even hear it properly when you're muffled in a face mask.
It's not just that either. It's like, is it going to be uncomfortable, like having it on all day? Okay, they're saying going to the shops and stuff and having it, but then you just have it for the duration you're in the shop.
Yeah.
So 30 minutes, I don't really know. It takes me 2 seconds to go shopping because I always know what I want before.
You don't go shopping.
No, I know.
You don't do the shopping, I do the shopping.
Yeah, I know, but still. Thank goodness for online shopping.
And well, exactly. I mean, I'll be honest. I wear a face mask. I've been wearing them since they were suggested at pretty much the beginning, to be fair. And it's not even about conforming to any rules or any guidelines. It was you're presented with certain information about what's going on outside. When you think about the environment you go into, say when you go into a supermarket, especially if you go into a small shop somewhere, and we're told that these small particles are microscopic and they hang on droplets and whatnot. If it comes in contact with your mouth, your nose, your ears and your eyes, you can be susceptible to get COVID-19.
That's your first word fail of the evening.
I know, it is late. But I don't object to wearing it. I'm not particularly happy about being forced to wear it. To be honest, I think it should be a matter of opinion. It should be a matter of looking after yourself and the people around you. I mean, at the very beginning, we were told to think about your loved ones, and it's not. For the general public, most of us are going to be okay, but there are, as we've seen, a certain demographic of people who will not survive getting an illness, much like flu. So the question is, how do you feel about actually being forced to put the mask on? I don't suppose it's really so much a question, do you agree with actually wearing one? I mean, that is a choice. I choose to wear it because if I'm out shopping, when I go into the supermarket, which is the only shopping I do really at the moment, especially as we are on sort of part lockdown, I'm only in there, half an hour, 40 minutes, and it's literally as soon as I leave that shop and I'm in either the car park or the outside area, if there's no one around me or not many people around because I'm in the open air, I will just take it straight off because I don't need it on anymore. And that's how I feel about it. Maybe that's okay. Maybe some people think it needs to go further. Maybe they feel like you should be wearing it as soon as you're out your vehicle and you're walking around outside even. I don't necessarily think so, but I think it should be a choice. And the really difficult thing here is, so the government has, when it's been asked, who's going to enforce this? Is this going to be the shops? Is it going to be the police? The overall answer seems to be it's going to be the police who are going to enforce it. Now, my biggest concern about that is we've already seen how in certain areas, because it's not all of them, in certain areas, we've seen the police overstretch and overreach and abuse their powers, in brackets. This has been evident and it has been called out and they've been told they're wrong. Should you give them license to do this now, where a supermarket employee or manager might see somebody walking around with no mask and that person refuses to wear a mask, and instead of telling them to leave, they might go straight to calling the police because they don't want the conflict. And I don't blame them. Why should they have to enforce something like that? So they call the police come in, and they're going to issue them with a, was it £100 fine? £100 fine. And how do they enforce it? Because it's not a law. And I know even if it becomes an act, it's still not the same thing. So therefore, you can only enforce something that is actually a law. Everything else is done under, what do you call it? Where you're ruled by, it'll come to me shortly, but you have to accept those terms. If it's not law, you have to accept those terms, as in the fine, and you have to accept that you've done wrong and you'll take it. But the police can only stop you. So let's say you've got 20 people not wearing masks. This is my question the other day. You've got 20 people who are not wearing masks. What are they supposed to do? The police come in. Do you line them all up? Single file, 2 meters apart, all not wearing masks, line them up to get a fine. But you can't actually do that. You can't stop somebody from leaving unless they're being arrested for a crime. And as it's not a crime, you can't make them stand there and wait to accept a fine. So they're gonna leave. And the problem is then you've got the police in a position where they will have their authority challenged in a public space as well, and they will not want to lose face over this. They've already lost, in some areas, a lot of credibility. They've also lost a lot of face over previous incidents. So I don't think they'll want to take on even more. And I don't think it's necessarily fair that they should have to take on any more either. The other question is, when the police do get called in and they come in to deal with this criminalised person who's not wearing a mask, are the police going to come in wearing masks? I mean, I haven't seen the police wearing masks much at all during this whole pandemic, to be honest with you. So I find that very strange.
There was something that I'd heard on the news yesterday, and I agree with it completely. But yeah, I thought to myself as well, you can't say that. So they had people on there speaking for and against, and like, we go out, we wear masks, but I think the issue they have is now they've been told they have to. And people don't like being told they have to do anything. And they're like, well, you're telling... I think it's worse that they've said you have to wear a mask now, because more people are going to probably not wear masks. Because number one, they're going to think, well, no, I'm not going to listen to you. No, I have to. I wanted to wear one. I think it's going to be that stigma of people that don't want to wear a mask, and then seeing the people that do want to wear a mask. There'll be sort of a social divide. Oh yeah, definitely. You'll get people sneering at each other. Those that are wearing the mask, you'll be called a sheep or whoever else. Nice to see you, Ivy. Thank you for joining us. They'll be called a sheep. They'll be called all sorts of names under it, like you're just following rules and regulations. And then you've got the other side. As soon as they see somebody not wearing a mask and coming towards them, like they're like the Dracula's coming towards you or something, got you cross out. And is that your impression? Yeah. And I don't think it's right. I think more than anything, it's pitting the public against each other. I mean, partly that's why we do this podcast now, is because especially the people in general are being divided and pushed apart. Nobody's talking to each other much anymore. And when they are, they're just shouting at each other, almost like you see in America. Look how divided they are. You've got one side screaming one thing, one side screaming the other, and there's no coherent conversations in the middle. That's what we should be having here. We should be having people coming together and actually
discussing and deciding on these subjects. Maybe that's why this is being allowed to happen, because we're not voicing our opinions enough, and we're leaving it up to these politicians who, you know, one minute we're calling them out for being out of touch, and the next minute being hailed as heroes because they've been so decisive, and which I think is a bit of a reach, that one.
So rewinding back, because I completely forgot my actual point then.
Okay.
So what I'd heard was the woman that was actually against mask wearing, she said, why is it now mandatory that we wear masks where it should be up to the public's own common sense to wear masks?
Yeah.
And she said, so with the masks in the offices and stuff that they're thinking of now, but they're only thinking about that at the moment, she said maybe having them in the shops and stuff is to ease them into it. And she said, I don't want to have to wear a mask to go shopping to ease myself into it. It should be common sense for other people to wear masks. So she doesn't have to wear a mask, but everyone else has to.
It's like saying,
sense.
I don't want to wear a mask, but you should.
Yeah, because it's common sense for other people too, but I don't have to. It's literally what she said.
I think if you look at it objectively, there is a very, very good argument for all people to wear masks. I think most people have seen that picture now on Facebook circulating, or if you're on here, clearly use Facebook. There's a picture circulating of two people together, both without masks, and you can see the spray from both of them. One with a mask, you got spray coming out one of them and not the other. Both wearing a mask, no spray at all. How accurate that picture is, I don't know. It might have been a bit dramatised for that particular argument, but you can see the point behind it. And do you know what? Actually, I feel more for the people who live in the inner cities, because it's very easy for me to say, it's whatever, you do what you like, whatever you're happy with. But we live in quite a rural area. And when I go shopping, and I especially do it in the evenings because I know it'll be quieter, I'm not face to face with many people. Anglesey does not have a high volume of people going shopping at the same time in the evening. So I can't judge too many people that harshly, because I don't know what it must be like to live in the cities. I mean, look at the beginning of the pandemic where people were queuing down the street just to go in. It was ridiculous. Well, there is one thing I was thinking before, though, was I wonder if what people remember, I mean, is it so far back to remember before all this happened? Before the pandemic, if you saw somebody wearing a mask, and I've seen many, many videos on YouTube of people wearing a mask down the street, and not the ones you see now, but in fact, the ones they're trying to sell now, where it's like a scarf or a neck.
Yeah.
Like fashionable snood.
Is it bandana / snood?
Yeah, that kind of thing. So those things. And do you remember the branded ones that were coming out, and they had like a skeleton thing on it and stuff like that? People were, especially some police, were actually stopping people and telling them to take it off because you shouldn't be hiding your face. Yeah. And if you dared to go into a bank, or you went into a shop wearing a bike helmet or anything else, you would be told immediately to take that off, or you cannot come in. And now you cannot go into these places unless you're wearing a mask. So I'm wondering, where the hell do we go after this? Do we go back? Are we going to be forced immediately on a certain date after this? No more wearing these masks. That's it. And then you are shouted down again if you're wearing a mask again. It just seems like a very bizarre thing. Why shouldn't they just be saying, use your common sense? Where you feel it's appropriate, wear your masks. In fact, one person who did say something like that, and I would not call them out many times for having the right opinion on something as far as I'm concerned, is Donald Trump. He came out and said, I know, controversial opinion. Donald Trump said the other day, you should wear a face mask where appropriate. And that is the most commonsensical thing I've heard so far.
They tried giving the option with the whole common sense. I'm all for, but I would never force anybody if they don't want to wear one, they don't want to wear one. I wouldn't force anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But with the whole common sense thing, it's like you don't have to wear it all the time. You don't have to wear it in your own home. You don't even have to wear it in the office if you work in the supermarket or in work, because they don't expect you to wear it for long periods of time. That's not what they're saying, in my opinion. But they're just trying to, when you're going into somewhere and you can't do the 2 meter distance, because what is it now? It's like 2
Isn't
meter
it a
distance,
meter plus? I think last I heard.
With masks, screens, all this. But in a way, I see it as it's a good thing that if you go shopping, you wear a mask, because the people that are still working, who are key workers still working in the shops so we can get our food and everything like that to survive, you're putting them more in. If there's a chance of it working, why not do it? Because you're putting other people at risk that are going to work, so they can't have furlough or anything like that because their work is still there. They have to go to work, and they see many, many people. I'm sure a lot of them have had to move out of the houses and stuff because they have vulnerable people in their households.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't force anybody to, but common sense, small spaces, I think it's a good idea.
Absolutely. I'm not somebody who's sort of scaremongering and saying that there's this killer virus going around in epic proportions, especially around these areas right now. Our numbers are very low. The amount of people who are now testing positive for it are lower than, I think, lowest since March, something like that. So as we're apparently running it down, we're now being told to wear masks instead of doing it during the escalation or during the peak of it, which is absolutely bizarre. Also, I don't know how many of you remember, but we were told at the beginning not to get masks. I vividly remember the government position was, do not buy these masks. You don't need to. And then afterwards, when they came back to it again, the topic, we were told you do need a mask. And the reason why they didn't want you getting one was because of key workers needing them and there wasn't enough supply. So our government openly told us all, they lied to us about the masks. We should have had them sooner. We should have been getting them for ourselves. They saved them for other people. And mainly they saved them for other people because apparently the government couldn't get their own. I don't know how that even happened. But the question after that then is, if the government lied from the beginning, how can they expect anybody to actually, one, believe them, and two, follow what their guidance is? I find that very bizarre.
It is. It's like they say, it's a new world.
Oh, I don't like that saying.
I know you don't
the
like
new
that
normal.
Saying, but it's just us Brits, we don't like change.
No, we don't. We don't like
change.
It's not
good.
We don't like change.
I don't like change.
Do you know what it is? We don't like change when it takes away things. Not that we're used to, but things that we either enjoy or we find crucial to us, to be honest. And what it's leading to, or what it's alluding to, is this new world or new normal that we're going into seems to be a cashless society, people wearing masks, nobody talking to each other. We all look at each other like we are one big virus. I mean, what's happening to the human interaction? What's the point of being here if that's something we're not allowed to do? It's very, very concerning because there's a lot of implications and things that it can lead to. For example, once you give certain people that amount of control, unchecked as well, it can lead to all sorts of other things. A cashless society, for example, could lead to people's money being controlled. For example, there's also the vaccines that are coming forward. Could you be told you cannot go on holiday, or you cannot stay here, you cannot go abroad, do this, do that, unless you've had a vaccine? What happens if you're opposed to the vaccine then? You're supposed to just sit in your house, you can't go anywhere, maybe you can't work. If you're on benefits or of some sort, what what happens to your benefits if you refuse to either get your vaccine or if you do something that goes against guidelines? Can they then say, well, in that case, you will no longer get this money that you absolutely need or this care that you absolutely need? Where does it lead to at that point? That's a very worrying thing, I would say. So just at this segment of the show, I would actually just like to remind everybody that if you do have an opinion at all, feel free to leave a comment on the video. If you have a very strong opinion and you're willing to, feeling brave enough, do feel free to message the word voice and we'll bring you onto the show live. You won't show up in the video, but we'll bring you in as audio and you can tell us your opinion. You won't be censored on this show at all. You can have any opinion you like here. This is a safe space where we won't cancel you. They may cancel us because of it, but we won't cancel you.
So, what do you think about the talks now with they're thinking about having people in offices wearing masks?
Oh, that's horrendous.
I think that's bad.
That's horrendous.
Can
you imagine? Yeah, can you imagine, especially at this time of year where people are going back to work now?
Yeah.
And we're about to really go into possibly some warm weather. Imagine that. A really hot office and you're sat there wearing a mask for a good three, maybe 4 hours before you get a lunch break. Oh, I mean...
I'm trying to figure out from when I used to work in an office how long it was.
Yeah.
So you'd start at 9. Yeah, 3 to 4. 3 to 4 hours before lunch break. And then...
That's going to be hard going. And I mean, if the rules are already... well, that's the funny thing as well. So they've told people so instead of being 2 meters apart, you are now allowed to be 1 meter plus, which I'm guessing, I'm sure they've given some guideline on that, but I'm guessing there will be an element of common sense there, they will say. And if you get it wrong, well, you, the public, are to blame, just like they blamed the care homes for people getting ill there, and we know how that happened. But to have that in an office wearing a face mask, I think that would be very difficult. And I feel for all the workers now, especially doing pub, bar, restaurant work, running, because it's quite a fast-paced job as well. You got to walk quite fast to get drinks and food out in good time.
It's having that in your mind, isn't it? That there's this new rule, and you're having to do that job, and you're just having to think of orders, think of what you need to get, think of everything else. And how easy is it to just go, oh, I'm too close to you, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry.
Like you haven't got enough going on to think about already without... I mean, how is that going for people? I'd like to hear that, actually. Anybody that's working in the hospitality trade...
Or in anywhere at the moment. Like, even the people that have had to work through it.
Yeah.
How have you guys found it? Because we've been very lucky. We've been able to...
Well, Anglesy's been shut down. We're very much a holiday area. And as everybody knows, Wales was closed for quite a while. So we haven't had to deal with it. But now things are opening up. And as we saw in England, the scenes there where people weren't really, keeping the distance. You look at it, it's not very social distancey. That wasn't particularly good, especially when they opened up the pubs on... Oh, that was the best part, where they opened the pubs up on, what did they call it, Super Saturday?
Super Saturday. I think it was the public that called it Super Saturday. I don't think...
No, it'd be the media that called it that. I bet it's the media. I bet they saw it and they thought, oh, here we go, rubbing our hands, Super Saturday.
Yeah.
You've got football on all day, you've got people out in the pubs drinking when they haven't been there in such a long, long time. And what were the scenes? Videos of people jumping around, hugging each other. That's just bonkers.
I'm dying to hug people. You know I'm a hugger.
I know.
It's been so hard. So hard. I just want to run outside and just hug everybody.
That's the only reason I'm actually keeping you in.
I don't blame you.
No.
So that's the point as well. So you've got all these celebrities that are sort of, pushing things and with all these videos and everything like that online at the moment. What about celebrities wearing masks and things like that? And
Well, when they show up for their awards
yeah,
dinners.
if they don't wear masks and stuff, are we really going to say, nah,
Yeah.
go get one, go on?
Yeah, I mean, at what point are they allowed to take it off? Because, I mean, for example, like you get them up on stage, they're giving their award speech, or they're calling out calling out who's won an award, and they're actually facing the audience. So how far back do they need to be, especially with it being an elevated platform? How far back does everybody need to be for this person not to have to wear a face mask?
What would they do it when they don't have to? The thing is, they wouldn't be able to do award ceremonies and stuff. I think they've still been doing some form of award ceremonies. And that was my first one.
Having said that, that'll mainly be in America anyway.
But it's
That's
been
not
more
so much.
like, how do you do it? The video, is it telecom or something like that? Where do you know where you watch the Brits or anything, and a certain act can't be there, and then
Oh yeah, they'll be on video link or whatever.
I think it'll be a long time where they'll be doing that more than physically having everybody together, because they're just going to struggle with it. And if they can't open theatres and stuff, I heard that they can open theatres outside now.
Yeah.
But
The logistics of this just seems terrible.
winter's going to be great. We're all going to be rained on.
Oh yeah. Oh, hello Anne. We can see you're watching. If you've got any questions about the face masks or any opinions on it, we'd love to hear it. Also, as well as that, so you see the politicians today having their little argy-bargy in the Commons. When you watch them walk in, has anybody seen this?
Mm-hmm.
You've seen them when they walk in. So they walk into the one of the best videos, the House of Commons. One of the best ones I've seen so far is as they're walking in. Is it Matt Hancock?
They've got the stickers on the floor. Now,
Oh,
if
yeah,
they
yeah.
can't follow stickers, how can they
Got the
follow any of
guidelines.
their actual rules?
Got the guidelines there on the floor. You've got Matt Hancock on one side, gentleman in the middle, another one on the other side. Gentleman in the middle decides, oh, we're a bit close here, so he steps back. So what does Hancock do? He moves across, puts his hand on the back of the other guy. I mean, these are the people setting out the rules and guidelines here, and they can't follow it themselves. So my question to that actually would be, what if you see that happen on your TV screen? Do they get fined? Because that's evidence, right? That's evidence they're not following the rules, especially rules that they're setting out. So if you see, my point is, for example, are people now as well going to be sat scanning their TV screens, watching the news, and watching out for people who are not socially distancing, not wearing a mask indoors, and then are they going to be picked out and fined? Are they going to find out what their address is and they'll receive a fine in the post? Maybe a little knock at the door from the police? I mean,
how are they going to set the fines?
Set the fines?
Set the fines. You give people fines. Sorry, I'm going back now to the whole mask wearing thing. They say they're going to give you a fine. Are they going to make you pay on the spot? Because do you have to give information of your address, and are you going to give it if you know that you're going to have to pay £100?
Well, exactly. Well, this is where the grey area comes in. So
I love grey areas.
So to give a fine out, you have to get somebody's details. Now, a clever person might walk around with no ID on them, for starters, and
oh yeah, that's why I hate getting ID'd. I want my wine.
well, it's alright for people like me, because if you've got a shaved head and a lot of baldness on top, people will look at you up and down and then go, yeah, no one wears that hairstyle unless they have to. So they'll know I'm over 18. I don't get the challenge under 25 either. But what was I saying on that point? How you get the fine. So the police can only fine you if they can get your details for one, and they can only force you to give them your details if you're being arrested. And then further along the line there, you can only be arrested if you've committed a crime. Now, I know what some people are going to say. It's now going to be the law to wear a face mask. That's not necessarily true. Now, this hasn't gone through as an Act of Parliament yet. As far as I know, I'm sure it'll be through by Friday. But an Act of Parliament is not necessarily the same as a law. Act of Parliament is only enforced by consent. We are governed by consent. Now, if you refuse to give your details over, or you're not carrying your details, they can't give you a fine. And if they arrest you, you have a case to actually sue them. Now, that in itself is the reason why I say there is larger implications here, and why the police might not want to get involved in this fight. The police don't exactly have a great reputation at the moment, and being challenged in this way is not going to look good for them.
So, I've just missed these.
What's it? Have you had a question?
So, Duncan, Alex Clements. So, there's a few on here. I'm so sorry.
Oh, is there a few? Because I'm not getting them on my screen, so I was waiting for you.
I've got about 3 screens going on right now.
Amazing.
And I'm so sort of engrossed in what you're saying. I'm doing my job, like, really
Horribly.
bad. So, I believe this is when we were talking about the masks in an office place.
Yeah.
It says, aircon will kill people, distance won't matter.
True. See, that's another point. When you're in an enclosed space like that, when you've got an aircon system, especially a lot of these integrated ones where they have them throughout the building, and in London especially, I believe they got them in some of the high-rise flats, the blocks of flats. You've got a central air system that actually circulates the same air throughout the building, which means a lot of people were panicking. And this was quite early on in this pandemic. They said that a lot of people were worried by being at home where they were forced to stay. They were possibly breathing in the same air as the other people in the rest of the building. So if you're in an office now and you've got that air circulating around, what does it matter if you're wearing a mask? You're all breathing the same air anyway.
There's another one.
So that is, who was that? Who was that first one?
So that's Duncan Alex Clement.
Duncan
I
Alex
remember
Clements.
Alex.
That was
I was in school with Alex.
that was a fantastic point. Thank you for that.
Also, this is a long one, and my dyslexia is gonna
Go for it.
trigger.
Who is this?
Same one.
Oh, same person.
So, one person gets a cold, the entire office gets it. Imagine the situation where the cold could potentially kill you. If you work in an office
Isn't that called flu?
on a high... You get a cold as well. Isn't that
Flu kills a lot of people.
Ian, remember now.
Are you talking about man flu? Are you talking about man flu? We don't actually die from it, we just
hear
suffer.
Somebody with a cold
Yeah.
over the phone. You you just get it. It's weird. Right. So now I've lost my place. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
For that, Ian.
Apologies.
So if you work in an office on higher floors, lifts are on average 1.5 metre corner to corner. People finish at 6. How do you get 100 people out of an office for at a time without taking up a massive amount of time? You then have the HR aspect where people don't earn enough to take time off due to sickness. If you don't take time off, people will get sick. If you take time off, you lose earnings. People will hide sickness to try and ensure that their families stay afloat. It's disgusting. That is a valid point.
Yeah, so you've also, but then that just reverts back to exactly how we've always been doing it. Somebody gets especially rife in hospitality, because that's an area that if you do get a bug, you are supposed to stay home. You don't go into work because there's a serious risk of spreading the infection and then spreading it to customers. And with food being around, that's quite dangerous. So people, like you said, will hide it. It's what people do. They can't afford to spend that time off work. A lot of them are on 0-hour contracts, which I believe came in thanks to the government. The same government that is now telling you that if you do get ill, you're supposed to stay home, even though you know you will probably lose money on that. So that straight away means a lot of people will not stay home. Also, testing is not mandatory. If you feel ill or you show symptoms of being ill, yes, your manager can send you home, but I've seen many places where you'll go in with clearly a fever, clearly looking run down. You'll be so ill, but they need staff, and therefore they will keep you there. They will happy to keep you in work. They'll say, oh, just, stay away from everyone else. No one wants to get ill. But inevitably everybody will. But if you haven't been tested, how can they say that it is COVID? You could just say, oh, I've just got a cold. It's not COVID. I haven't got those symptoms. I've got these symptoms. I haven't got those symptoms. I'm fine. You'll be fine. Don't worry.
And the thing is as well, if you do get tested, like if your workplace says no, you've fallen ill, you have to get tested and everything before you can get clearance to come back. Do they have to show documents that they've been tested, or can they just go, I've been tested, I'm all clear? There's that. There's so many loopholes, so many, but it's a new thing. It's something new that everybody has to just figure out by the looks of it themselves.
Yeah, I think we are all very quickly finding out that we are having to just figure this out ourselves. Before you go to another one, I've got a comment over here. This one comes in from Anne. It says, I think the reason they're bringing in fines is public pressure. If they make something mandatory, there has to be a consequence. Hopefully people will act responsibly and wear them to respect others' safety as well as their own. I mean, to be fair, that is a very good comment. Yes, I think, do you know what? It could be like what they did with the pub trade at the beginning. They were very reluctant to bring into force the pubs closing down because they didn't want, I guess, it reduced their liability for pubs going under. If they didn't tell the pubs to close, but they were telling people to stay away from them, they would maybe hope that people would stay away from them and, aid tools help get rid of the virus. But at the same time, they weren't responsible for the pub trade suffering. In the end, the pub trade had to fight back and say, no, everybody come out, this is great, we're going to do deals, everybody come into the pubs. So they did. The government was then forced to close the pubs. Therefore, they had to furlough everyone, and it was easier for the pub trade and its staff, essentially. But obviously cost the government a lot of money, which they didn't want to pay out.
Costing the pubs and restaurants a lot of money as well.
It was always going to cost them.
There's been other benefactors as well that they have had to pay for. It was a good thing that they stopped, they put a cap on rent during all of this.
Was that for the landlords of the pubs?
That was the landlords of the pubs.
That wasn't with all of them.
Or was it?
No, that wasn't mandatory. It wasn't. It wasn't something that was across the board. Some places didn't do it. Some were quite mean about that.
Yeah, we've got to look at it at their side as well, because maybe that was their only source of income. And no, because weren't there like grants and stuff as well? So if people can't pay rents, they can put like a stop on it for now, and then they get government funding.
There was something in place, but essentially what you'll find will happen with this is no matter what happened, because everybody suffered, everybody lost money here. People were taking... Can you imagine the loans that were being taken out left, right and centre?
Yeah.
Oof. I feel for people with that.
So, another one
Mm-hmm.
from... I keep saying Duncan Alex Clements, but I know him as Alex. So I hope you don't get offended if I just say Alex.
Come on, Alex, what are you saying now?
So going back to when we were saying with the police forcing the fines.
Yeah.
Can't get my words up. Being in lockdown's not been good for me. I don't know how to communicate anymore.
Does anybody else feel like that? Now you've gone outside and started speaking to people again, you find that you can't even talk anymore.
Yeah,
the words just completely fail you now. You need to all go back to school and find out how all these words that we've lost out of our vocabulary.
So he says you are not required to give your details in civil matter.
Mm-hmm.
A guideline isn't law.
Yep.
And as such is unenforceable. Well, I'm proud of myself for reading that. By the police.
Yep.
And also, really quickly, Thank you, Alex. He said it's okay for me to call him Alex.
Alex, that is a fantastic point. Because you are completely right. A civil matter doesn't actually involve the police at all. Anybody that calls the police out for a civil matter is actually not only wasting their time but wasting public money. Now, should a civil matter turn obviously aggressive, that means that you should call the police because somebody might feel alarmed, harassed and distressed, and you should always call the police out for such a situation should that arise. As they've said, a lot of the time the police are quite stretched at the moment. I find that in some areas a little bit hard to believe, but considering everybody was locked up indoors for so long, I don't know how they were stretched at that point. But actually, I've got a question for everybody. So I said before, has anybody seen the police wearing masks? I've seen the odd one, but in general, they have not been wearing masks. They've been grouped together a lot as well. Does anybody know of any cases that have cropped up within the police of corona? Obviously, we've heard of nurses dying, doctors dying, surgeons dying, who are frontline workers and that. The police, aren't they classed as frontline workers? I have not heard, myself, a single case of a police officer falling ill or dying from it. And that's quite bizarre because they come into contact with the public every single day. Yeah. And also with each other. And each one of them most of them will have families that they live with or visit. Also, with the Black Lives Matter movements and the marches that were in London and was it Manchester, places like that, there was word that there was going to be this big outbreak after they happened. How many weeks has that been?
Wave.
Yeah. How many weeks has that been now? Because
a few weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, all we've heard.
I don't know how many days have gone by alone week, so I can't really help you. But it's probably been a month now. Has it been a month?
Oh, it's got to be a good
amount
of time.
Are we asking our friend Google?
I'm going to educate myself, and I am Googling it. So, London protests. We'll find out how long ago that was.
Alex personally knows a police officer that got ill but was never tested. Oh. So, not confirmed.
Never tested? Why was that? Well, I can confirm here. I mean, this is on the BBC, so I've got dated here the protests on the 13th of June in London. Now,
what month are we?
That's over a month. Yeah, we're in July, so that was over a month ago.
Just over a month.
And we got told you'll get symptoms within, what was it, 2 weeks?
They said that you could get symptoms in 2 weeks, but signs, I think they said that it would... 2 weeks? Oh, I'm so slow. I was going to say, I think it's about 14 days, and that's 2 weeks.
So let me get this right. You had thousands of people gathered in city centres, marching side by side, all breathing in... I mean, there were masks there. Don't get me wrong, there were masks, but there wasn't masks among everybody. And the police came into contact with them. There was clashes all over the place. And we got told there's going to be a second wave thanks to those people. And that was part of the reason they told them not to go there. I can't say I've, again, seen any outbreak of the virus since then. Other than that, people going to the beaches, that must be a couple of weeks ago now. I haven't seen anything come out about that. What is going on? I don't understand that one.
Sorry, you've lost me. My mother tried calling me.
Oh, Joyce. I'm surprised Judith isn't on here actually giving us her opinion.
Right, sorry, where were we?
So I was just saying that we haven't seen any outbreaks since the protests, since people going on the beach. Maybe, so I've got a comment here from Anne saying that maybe as it was outdoors, that was the reason the spread didn't escalate. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that holds water, if I'm completely honest. I can see there's an argument there, but if you saw the close proximity people were at in those protests and the clashes and everything, I mean, we got told you can't go to the gym because of people sweating.
It's not sweating. I've had this argument with you. What do you do if you exercise? You breathe heavier.
Do you know what you do when you exercise? You get fitter. You get fitter and stronger to fight off an infection should one arise.
That's my opinion.
Now, yeah, I tell you what, that will be a new feature on the show at some point in the future. We've said, now we have this in our household. I don't know what you have in your household if you're in the middle of a discussion or an argument that you can't find your way out of. We've decided that we have a fictional buzzer button type thing, and if it gets too much and we want to end it there, we'll just do this, and then we say, go on, you can do it. You want to do it? That's my opinion. And that's it.
It's the lockdown survival.
Yeah, conversation over. We couldn't go anywhere at the time, so we were like, look, we're just going to have to leave it there. So that was us on that one. So in future, we're looking to, as you can see, the table's quite large here. We will eventually have guests on the other side of the table. We'll do little interviews. Somebody can sit here, talk to them. It could be a local business owner, it could be Joe Public, and we'll still have questions coming in for both them and for us, and even just opinions. But in the middle, we're going to have that buzzer. Anytime they decide, you know what, I can't take this conversation, I need to end it here, just hit the buzzer and end it on, that's my opinion, and that is acceptable in here.
We'd have to confiscate it from you.
Yeah.
Because after every sentence, that buzzer's going to be going off.
Yeah, I tend to have to try and win the argument. But actually, back to what I was saying about the gyms, that was what... Do you know what? Actually, there's not many things that I've watched. I found the news quite comical at times with how they've portrayed this, how they've reported on it. But one of the things that really irritated me was the emphasis on the pubs opening. People can go out drinking, as long as they're sensible and they socially distance and it's all formal and whatnot. And yet you can go and do that. You can go and have a drink and basically lower your guard, lower your inhibitions. When you drink, you are less observant of the area around you. You do not sort of keep... What was their new slogan? What was it? Stay aware and whatnot. How does stay aware and stay safe include going to the pub? How's that staying aware? So they'll open that.
Isn't it?
Oh God!
It's my
I am desperate to go out for a pint and watch the football as much as anybody else. Not to watch my team; they're terrible. Maybe to watch a decent team, but I understand that going to the pub and with people all around you, you know, you get one person who's not very well in there, has got a bug. Most of them are going to get it in there. Because when you're drinking alcohol, you're lowering your immune system's response. You're making your body weaker, essentially. Even if it's just for that evening, that is enough time for a virus to take over. You're going to the gym, and if you're promoting healthy living, healthy food, you are less likely to be unable to fight off an infection or a virus because you are fitter. And they stopped people going outside at the beginning when we were having lovely weather. I remember seeing videos and pictures of people sat on their front grass or a communal garden area because in the inner cities they don't have their own gardens. So they were sat in these communal areas, which are private land, I might add, as well. And they were told and forced to go back inside by police when all they're doing is sat there in their own group, away from other people, getting vitamin D from the sun, which actually promotes good health. I just find it bizarre. It's like they've tried to stop people being healthy on one side, but you can go out and do these unhealthy things over here, and yet apparently trying to lower the risk of infection. I just don't get it. I don't get it.
So I've got another one. So Alex has said my last point.
You can have as many as you like.
Yeah, you can. They're brilliant. Loving them. So he says, I currently live in one of the places mentioned about the beaches.
Yeah.
Is that Southend-on-Sea? Because it looks like Southend.
Yeah, Southend.
Okay. Local cases have
She's
increased...
Welsh, don't blame her.
Yeah. If it was in Welsh, I could, like the back of my hand. Have increased a lot in the local area to me. There we go. Over the country, you need a huge amount of new cases to affect the R number. Stop looking at it as the country. In 3 weeks, the R number in Southend went from 0.61 to 0.93 after the heat wave.
Okay.
So, yeah, again...
Did you see that effect, though? Like, in your area, apart from seeing it on the news, apart from hearing official stories, did you see that effect in your area? Was there word going around that more people were getting infected? Do you know circles of people who were saying that it's suddenly had a spike, like they've seen people getting ill? I don't know. Different. It depends where you get your information from as well. People like to knock those who are on YouTube and other platforms who even say things on social media, and they try and, I guess, in a way, report their own form of journalism because they're out there and they're looking at things. But why can't you knock our media? Because actually before all this, a lot of conversation was how much the media lies. So all of a sudden, we're believing the media again. How does that suddenly change?
Yeah. I just find it crazy because no opinion is a stupid opinion.
Yeah.
In my mind.
Yeah.
Because no matter what your opinion is, there's always going to be someone out there that has an opinion that makes you think. Like, living with Ian, everything I've come up with and gone,
I think you're going to get some insight here.
Yeah. Well, no, there's this, and there's this.
Yeah.
And then he'll turn to me, well, you could see it like this and this and this. And luckily, I'm open to other things. And I think, oh, right, great. I'm walking away from that. And that is when I like to use the buzzer of that's my opinion. Isn't
it the same as, when it comes around to voting, and people say, well, you should vote. If you don't vote, you shouldn't have an opinion. Or you don't have an opinion. So shouldn't you have an opinion to basically be heard? If you don't have opinions on this, or you don't voice your opinion, because everybody has an opinion. In your head, there is an opinion, whatever it is. But if you don't voice it, if you don't do something with it, you leave those people in charge to walk all over everybody and do what they like. This is why you need to have public opinion. You need to have discussions.
So you were asking with the R number,
mm-hmm.
and where people are getting their information and that from.
Mm-hmm.
And you had the comment from Alex with the heat wave and in his area. Well, he actually works for the NHS.
Oh, yeah. Excellent. I don't suppose he'd like to call in or receive a call to actually have a little discussion with us.
Ask him.
Just a little proviso here. Anybody that does call in, you are welcome to call in anonymously. We don't have to give you your name. We don't have to tell anyone where you're from, who you work for. Literally just call in with an opinion. We'd love to hear from you. It's always good. I'm getting direct messages here, but please do direct them to the show itself. There we go. So, is there anything here that we haven't really covered? We've got a comment from Anne saying, hence why outdoor pubs, etc. is okay. Anything indoors is quite iffy. Yes, there is a positive there that people are gathering outdoors if they go to some bars and restaurants, they're outdoors. But we've seen plenty of pub situations where they're indoors. So
isn't that in England though?
It is in England, but I'm wondering.
Not here.
No, not here. But I'm wondering, is the indoor thing? Is that just whatever they decide, the individual establishments?
I think they're allowed to open indoors if they put in screens, and so they have to book tables.
Yeah.
Just so everybody knows, I work in this industry. I'm not in the pub all the time to learn all of this. So they have to book tables. They get seen to their table.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to move from their table only to use the facilities. That's the only time they're allowed to leave their table.
Mm-hmm.
It's table service.
Mm-hmm.
there's screens and things in place so people are safer. But I think that's just in England at the moment, because I believe, well, our end in Wales anyway, it's just outdoor seating at the moment.
I wonder how far behind we are now in Wales.
I'm glad we're far behind, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Because we know what to do, what not to, a little bit more, I guess.
Do you know what it's almost like?
Behind.
It's like, where we saw Italy have the major outbreak there, and it went ridiculous. I remember seeing on the news, I remember seeing lots of people commenting on that from across the whole of the UK, saying we have essentially, now the government likes to say a lot of the time, with hindsight we can do this, and with hindsight we can do this, but we are looking at England from Wales and Scotland. We are looking at England with hindsight, like they were looking at Italy. Now, England had its chance to actually put things in place when they saw it break out in Italy that could have helped prevent what's going on, or to the extent of what's going on. But they didn't.
They did, because they built that hospital, didn't they?
Well, yeah, they built the hospital because they knew. Yeah, hostel. They built the hospital. Why? Thing is, right? They seem to plan for when it went wrong rather than trying to prevent it. Now, isn't the rule always the preventative is better than the cure? That's the way I've always been taught. Now, for them to completely ignore the preventative and just go straight to the cure means they had no intentions of stopping it. And they even at the beginning did mention, what was it, herd immunity?
Yes, but they said recently they were never actually going to do that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Why, if you weren't going to do something, you don't come out in public and say something like that unless that is in your mindset.
Was it said though, or was it leaked?
No, it was said.
Because I don't remember it being said. I remember you telling me it was said.
Maybe I made it up then. Who knows? Right, well, I think we'll recap at this point. So, with the news saying that it's now mandatory for people to wear face masks when they're going into public buildings in England, mainly supermarkets and shops, what do you think about it? Feel free to still comment on the video afterwards. You can direct message us. If you would like to appear on the show next time, you're welcome to message the word voice to us, and we will get you on the show. You're welcome to come on there for 5, 10, an hour, if you want to be on for an hour, if you think you can last. But that was episode 2 of the IGA podcast, and we will see you soon in episode 3. Thank you very much for joining us. Good night.